Welcome to this session on Azure Developer Tools. Uh, I have with us our speaker, Kazim, who is a Microsoft MVP. I would like to welcome Kazim and uh, welcome to this session, Kazim, and thank you for taking your time in delivering this talk today. And uh, and I hope everyone will have a great learning experience from your talk.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm
Over
going
to
to
you.
go right ahead
Yeah,
and share my screen now.
yeah. I'm stopping my screen.
Okay. Um, Kindly confirm that you can see my screen, please.
Yes, Kazim, we can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. Let me try to stop my video. Alrighty then. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Kazim, and today we're going to be looking at Azure Developer Tools. So we brushed through Azure DevOps, Azure AI, and Kubernetes. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And in between it, I'll try to show some demos, right? So a little bit about me. I work with Icon Systems Limited here in Nigeria. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, a Microsoft Azure MVP, and also a certified metaverse expert. I run two podcasts. One is Tech Talk with Kazim, so you can look that up on YouTube. So where I share cloud-related content, more specifically about the Azure cloud. And on my channel, you'll also find a little bit of metaverse content as well. And I have another channel that I co-host with my friend Samuel Eskin, who is based in the UK. So that is called Africa Talks Tech. So where we try to shine light on some Africans doing great work in tech. So you can follow me up on Twitter. So it's called X now. So my handle is Kazim Can Teach. So that's also my Instagram handle, and on LinkedIn. So if you'd like to follow me on LinkedIn, so it's Kazim Adegboyega on LinkedIn. So that's the little bit about me. So going straight to the objectives now that we're going to be covering, we'll look at Azure DevOps, just some basics of it, right? And for those who are new to Azure DevOps, so they might be thinking it's probably something superfluous, right? So I'll just show you some basics of it, right? How you create an organization, how to create a project, and possibly I might also just show you how you can use a template, leverage a template to do that. Next, we'll look at Kubernetes. So you see when people you see it written as K8S, right? So it's just a short for Kubernetes. And we'll also just touch on Azure Kubernetes services for a little bit. So where I'm going to introduce you, if you're new to Kubernetes now, about some terminologies perhaps that you need to be familiar with about Kubernetes. So I'll tell you what a node means, what a cluster means, what a service is about, you know, a load balancer, what it does, you know, as one of the components of AKS. And I will also take a look at some demos here, where I'm going to show you how to set up a Kubernetes cluster, and also how to deploy a containerized application on the cluster that we've created. And I will try to wrap things up, if time permits now, with Azure AI. Um, so I'm just going to be introducing you here to Azure AI, and I'll try to share some resources with you that you can look up on your own to learn a little bit more about Azure AI. I'm a Microsoft Learn expert too as well, so I'm going to be sharing, I'll share a link that you can follow. There's one of my colleagues on the Microsoft Learn Expert platform that is very big when it comes to AI. So I'd want you to just look him up and follow him for you know, more content. And I've also hosted some people on my channel as well, where we've had the you know, the time to discuss Azure AI for a little bit. So I'll just share those resources. I'll leave you with those resources. So if you have any questions to ask, you can kindly put them in the chat, and I'll respond to them when I'm able to. So let's kick things off with importance of Azure developer tools. You know, modern application development demands agility, right? So there's this agile approach to doing things now, as opposed to developing your applications in a traditional way. You know, when you develop your application in a, you know, in a you know, in the old school way, so to speak, it means that when you have an application to develop, of course, before developing the application, you will need to learn about the requirements, you know, all the necessary features that that application is going to need to have, right? So the traditional way of developing an application would be to code all of those features in and then roll it out, right? But there is a better way of doing things, so which is to use the agile approach. So the agile approach is a way of breaking down your project, you know, your software development into sprints, you know, into little chunks. Those different functionalities, those different features that your application would need to have, you stage them. So you can focus on releasing feature one first. So that will aid you to quickly get to your end users, to quickly launch your product, your application to the market, right? Because you're following the agile approach. And that way you can quickly get feedbacks from your consumers, from your users, and then, you know, use that feedback to, you know, roll that feedback into your next release. So that's the some of the advantages now that the agile approach of software development gives you, as opposed to the traditional way where you have to spend a lot of time to complete all the feature that the applications will need to have before you get feedback. So if you get feedback at that later time, it's not going to serve you really well. So it just slows down the entire software development lifecycle, so to speak. So modern application development demands agility, it demands scalability and efficiency as well, right? So Azure developer tools play a key role in achieving this goal, right? So some of the importance when it comes to Azure developer tools, there are other tools out there, but here we're just going to be focusing on the Azure developer side of things, right? So one of them is accelerated development. You know, Azure developer tools provide a comprehensive suite for fast-paced development. You have tools that you can leverage, such as the Azure DevOps itself. You have your Visual Studio. You have Azure Azure Functions. These different tools will help you streamline your coding, testing, and deployment. So that's one very good key importance of leveraging Azure developer tools, right? Another one is collaboration and integration, right? So Azure Developer Tools promotes collaboration across development teams, right? So you have seamless integration with popular development environments. And this ensures that you have compatibility, and it makes you really very productive, right? So imagine you're using Azure DevOps. So you can easily integrate with other Microsoft tools, so to speak. So if you want identities, there's a way that you can easily connect with the Azure Active Directory. By the way, is now known as Microsoft Entra. So that's it will give you ease when it comes to collaboration and integration with some other tools, right? Monitoring and analytics is another very good one. So anytime you're leveraging Azure tools, you will notice that Azure comes bundled with a tool called Azure Monitor, right? So Azure Monitor is a very powerful tool. This tool can be used to monitor applications developed by many of the Microsoft Azure or many of the Azure tools, right? So Azure Monitor provides real-time insight into application performance. So if you want to monitor how then we have things like application insights, log analytics that can help provide those deep diagnosis, so to speak, if you want them. So monitoring analytics is another very key feature, one important tool that you don't want to sleep on, why you should be using Azure developer tools, right? And another one is global reach and high availability. Azure's global presence ensure high availability and also low latency, because it means that you can now develop your applications and host it on the server that is closest to you. So even though it is sitting there in the cloud, but to prevent that latency issue, you simply ensure that you're hosting it in a region that is closest to you. And when it comes to global reach, I mean, nobody does it better than Microsoft. Nobody can compete when it comes to global reach than the Azure cloud. I mean, in terms of global reach, they're number one, right? Azure is way up there. So you can leverage also on tools such as Azure Traffic Manager, Azure Front Door, to even optimize your user experience. So if you know you're going to be hosting application that is going to get a lot of traffic, then those are some tools. So there are some tools that Azure comes services that you can leverage on Azure to even optimize and improve your user experience. And lastly here, I have cost optimization. It is important to watch our spend when we host our applications in the cloud. So the cool things when it comes to working with Azure developer tools is that we have what is known as the Azure Cost Management. So the Azure Cost Management is a tool that can help you control and optimize your cloud expenditure, right? So Azure Cost Management is something you need to check out if you're running tools on Azure. You're running application in the Azure cloud. If you're not careful with ensuring that you put your cloud spend under control, you find out that you're just going to be spending money unnecessarily. So to prevent you from those unnecessary expenditure, you can leverage this tool. You can leverage this tool to help you with that. So Azure Developer Tools are a fundamental part of any modern application development. They empower developers to create, to deploy, and to manage application in a more efficient way, in a very secure manner, and also in a cost-effective manner. All right, so let's delve into things now, and we're going to be kicking things off with Azure DevOps, right? Azure DevOps. So Azure DevOps is a software as a service platform from Microsoft. Although, the Azure DevOps has gone through different iterations. So it has had so many names in the past, but now we have Azure DevOps, right? The way I can explain this is that it helps, it enables developers and operation teams, the infrastructure guys or the SysOps guys, to do their job better, right? So imagine having developer that is responsible for writing codes, and you also have the SysOps guys on the other side, who are responsible for managing servers, right? So you notice that when a developer writes his or her code and they push their code to a repository, say GitHub, for example, if those codes eventually get pushed to a server, imagine that the application, after being pushed to the server, did not work, right? The server guys can claim that the server is working fine, right? And the developer guy, on the other hand, can also claim that, but the application was working just fine on my machine. So you see now that there is a thin line. There is likely to be a problem. The application developers write their code. There's the system ops guys who are responsible for managing the servers, right? So to mitigate this problem, right, that is why we have DevOps. DevOps is there to ensure that the developers and the SysOps guys work together by automating the process so that it works every time. You don't get excuses, you don't get people pushing blames, you don't get the developers pushing blames to the system operations guys, you don't get the operations guys pushing blames to the developers. So that, I believe, should help you understand, if you're new to the whole idea of DevOps, what DevOps is all about, right? And it's important, right, to note or to keep in mind that if you're a DevOps engineer, you are not necessarily an application developer. Yes, if you have application developer skills, then that's awesome, right? But as a DevOps person, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be an application developer. That is really not your role, right? Your job is to ensure that both of these guys, both the developer and the system operator guy work seamlessly together by automating the software development lifecycle, right? So what is DevOps, or what is Azure DevOps, right? So Azure DevOps is a comprehensive set of development tools and services designed to help team plan, develop, test, and deliver software in a very efficient manner. That is what Azure DevOps helps you with, right? So that is what it is, right? So it is your one-stop shop for implementing all of your DevOps processes. So just quickly, let me run through some terms that you would hear the DevOps people or people in the DevOps space use. And I will try to walk you through what the environment looks like just really quickly, right? Azure DevOps, we've said it provides a unified platform for every stage of the DevOps lifecycle, right? So you have features like work item tracking, right? So with work item tracking, you can create, you can prioritize, you can track your work items. That is your task, your user stories. You can track bugs and fix bugs, right, in an agile or a customized, process, right? So it supports sprint planning and backlog management. So you're able to say, I want to work on this project. We need to, if there's a project we're working on, we need to be able to track the project, see what bug, the project has, so on and so forth. So that is one very important term you need to be familiar with. You also often come across this term continuous integration. You hear people say CI/CD, right? So CI is a short for continuous integration. So continuous integration is the industry term that is used to describe the process of automating the building and testing of code, right? So that is CI. It's just the industry term, the industry standard term that is used to describe that process. When you want to build, when you're building, of course, before you release, you need to test. So that building and testing of your code, you use the CI, continuous integration, to define that. So let's bring it to Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps, this process is known as the build pipeline. Build pipeline. So when you see pipeline, there is build pipeline, there is the release pipeline. So the build pipeline correlates to continuous integration. And we also have continuous delivery, right? So continuous delivery is the process of automating the development or the deployment of the application, which ensures that the final product is made available to the customers, right? So when you've built the application, you've tested it, you need to make it available, right? You need to release it, right? So that is what CD stands for. And bringing it to the Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps, CD process is known as release pipeline. So now, hopefully, when you see, you can see I have here pipeline, right? So when you open up your Azure DevOps, you will see your Azure board, you see your artifact, you see your Azure test plan, you see your repository, and you see your pipeline. So you see the CI/CD is here. So you can have your CI, which is the build pipeline in Azure, and you have your CD, which is the release pipeline in Azure, right? So that's one term that is important to note. There's also testing, right? And let's call it test management, testing and test management. So Azure test plans is used for creating and managing and executing your test cases. So that's what you use that for. We also have package management, right? So package management, Azure artifacts, right? So they provide a secure package management for various packages that you might want to work with, right? So it is the centralized storage, for sharing of your packages. So, and you have your source code management too as well. So source code management, you have Git-based, version control system for your code management. So that allows for you to merge, for you to branch, and if you want to review your code within a collaborative environment. So that's also another important term you see them use. So quickly, let me stop sharing so I can just show you what it looks like. So at least it shouldn't be completely alien to this after this time. So let's see what it looks like, right? All right, so this is my DevOps environment. The URL that you need if you would like to set up an account or you want to log in is dev.azure.com. So it brings you here, right? And what you want to do first, if your environment is totally brand new, you want to start by creating an organization. So you see, I can create a new organization. Let me give this organization a name. How about I call it Kazim or Kazman DevOps? DevOps. And PVWQ. I can see this one. This is V. All right, so I've created an organization. So that's how easy it is for you to create an organization. So once you have an organization, you need to also have a project, right? So you can have a project or a team, but you can define one right here. So I can go right ahead and create a project. If I want, I can also leverage tools to create a project, right? Like there is a DevOps project generator that I can work with. So that would give you, it will put you in a good, it will give you a good start, so to speak, because it's going to come with some templates, things that can get you up and running very quickly. So you can do it manually like I'm doing now, just give your project a name, or you leverage this tool, the URL, if you like to leverage the Azure DevOps demo generator is Azure DevOps demo generator, Azure website. Good, so I'm going to sign in. And as you can see here, I'm signing. Hope I'm signing with the right account. I hope so. So you need to select a template. Find a template that will be close to your kind of project. That your team is likely to work on. So let's say I run a biomedical company. So I can work with this project right here, right? So I can select this project and have that as my template, give my project a name. I work for Icon Systems, so I can say Icons Biomed. So Icons Biomed is my project's name. So we have some projects that we want to take on Icons Biomed. And remember, we created an organization, and I've called the organization Kazman DevOps, right? So I would choose that and create a project. So that's a very quick way of setting things up, right? As opposed to manually create your project, and your project won't have any template, so to speak. So you need to build everything from scratch. But if you want to get up and running really quickly, then you can leverage on this tool here to create your project. Let's see, another thing that I can quickly show you because of time, right? So you'll notice that even when you want to create some web services, even in Azure, there is a way to even connect to an Azure DevOps. For example, if I come here, this is my Azure portal. So if I'm trying to create a web app, let's create, how about a static web app? So you choose your subscription, choose your resource group. I can call this the Azure DevOps Okay. And give this a name, Tasman Azure DevOps. All right, and just fill in the blank. So you see, when it comes to the deployment details, so it means that once this application is being rolled out, I can manage it. I can connect to my Azure DevOps even from right here. So my repository, my source for getting, if I need to roll things out, doesn't have to be through GitHub. So I don't need to connect from GitHub to Azure DevOps. I can just connect to Azure DevOps directly, right? So some other source, some other repository. So you can choose some other ones here. So if I do my Azure DevOps, so you see, I can select my organization. So this organization I've just created, select a project. So you see the project that has finished creating the project for us. So I can select a project here and select a repository and select a branch. Say I want to use a master branch, and you get the picture. So very easy, to now work with. And let me try to refresh this one. Okay, awesome. So I have my project here, so I can click on my project. And from here, you can, you have your dashboard, you have your board where you can set up your sprints, your delivery plans, you have your repos, and you have your pipelines, right? So if I need to, I can create a build pipeline, I can create my release pipeline, right? So where is my code? Is my code, where is the repository? Is it on Azure? Is it on GitHub, or is it on Bitbucket Cloud? So you choose your option. There's also a classic option. So I need to troubleshoot that. I don't know why that is not showing up right now. But at least you get the picture now how to work with this. So just spend some little time. I believe there are a lot of free courses online that you can leverage to learn more about Azure DevOps, right? So because of time, so we can have some time to also get through to the other talks. So let me continue with Kubernetes. Kubernetes. All right. So what is Kubernetes? So I'm sure that everyone on this call know by now, you must have been hearing, the buzz around Kubernetes, right? So the reason for the buzz is because it's the biggest open source software project out there. Probably, yes, people might want to argue that. How about where do I want to place Linux? Yes, after, the Linux kernel, the next most popular project, open source project out there is Kubernetes, right? So Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration platform that helps you automate the deployment and the management of your containerized application, right? So that is what Kubernetes is. So it is an orchestration platform. When you hear about, people orchestrating something, automating something, you hear of platforms such as Puppet, right? You use Puppet as an orchestration platform. So Kubernetes is an orchestration platform for containers, right? So use cases, Kubernetes, of course, is being utilized in a lot of industries, right? You have industries like Netflix, they're leveraging Kubernetes, Google themselves, and many others they rely on Kubernetes for scalable and reliable services. So let me also just, before I start to define some of these things here, if you're wondering, do I really need to learn Kubernetes? Well, I would say that if you work in a small environment, right? So a small environment, perhaps you necessarily don't need to learn Kubernetes. But if you work in a big environment, you write codes, you write software for very big organizations, then the chances is that you're going to need to leverage Kubernetes. So at that time, then you definitely, Kubernetes becomes, a necessity, for you, so to speak. So let's take a look at some important concepts, important terminologies when it comes to Kubernetes, right? And this is the way you do it in the Microsoft platform, on the Microsoft platform. The way we run Kubernetes on the Microsoft platform is via AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, right? So let's walk through some of the terminologies. One is a node, right? A node. A node is a virtual machine that runs containers, right? So it is part of your AKS cluster, and it provides the computational resources that is needed to execute your applications, right? So a node will provide resources such as CPU, memory that is needed to execute your application. So that is what a node is. So you also hear terminologies like a pod, right? So it's another component of Kubernetes, of AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services. So a pod is the smallest deployable unit in Kubernetes, right? And it represents what holds your application's ingredients. Imagine um, imagine it like your lunchbox. Let me use that example. Where is where you pack your meals, your drink, your fruit and snack, if you will. So the lunchbox is an example of your pod. So it carries all the necessary, applications that you need. It carries things like your code, your files, your settings. So AKA pods help you to tidy, it keeps your application tidy and efficient. So it makes it always ready to serve you, so to speak. So next is a service, right? A service is a Kubernetes resource that enables communication between different pods and sometimes to external clients, right? So it provides a stable and unique address that allow other services and users to find and connect to your application, right? So that's what a service is. Next is deployment. A deployment is a Kubernetes resource that defines how the desired state of your application should look like, right? So what it should look like. And it helps you maintain the specified number of replicas of pods that you need to have, right? So that is what a deployment is. And next we have, or lastly here, there are a lot more, but I have 5 up here. So the last one I have here is a load balancer. So a load balancer is a service that distributes incoming traffic across multiple ports, right? So simply put, it ensures that your application remains available and responsive, right? When a lot of people want to access your application. So the load balancer makes sure that no single server gets overwhelmed, right? So it helps you spread incoming requests across multiple servers, right? So I can go on and on, but these are a few components of Kubernetes or AKS system. Let's also take a look at something quickly for AKS, right? So what can I show? I was hoping to show you how to set up, how to deploy an app to a Kubernetes cluster. But for time, let me just walk you through how to set up a Kubernetes cluster, in Azure. All right, so I'm going to come to, earlier on, I created a resource group. So let me look for that resource group. Okay. I want to make sure that I'm selecting the right subscription. So I created one called AKS. So there are different ways of doing this, by the way. So I can just go to services and look up my Kubernetes cluster, or I can search it from the search box, or you create it from your resource group. So from here, I can create, all right? All right, so let's click on that, give that a click, and create. All right, so you always need to select the right subscription. Everything that you create up in the Azure cloud starts with selecting the right subscription, right? Select the right resource group and the cluster preset configuration. So is it going to be for production use? Is it going to be for testing purposes? So you can select which one floats your boat. So if you want to see the comparison between all of this, so you can click on this to give you the comparison table between all of those. So I'll make do with the default here. What is your Kubernetes cluster name? So let's call this Kazman AKS cluster. So give it a name, give it a region. So the rule of thumb is for you to always choose a region that is closest to you. But I'm just going to leave this as is now for a time. Availability zone, so I'm going to leave it at its default as well. And the Kubernetes version, so if you have any version in particular that you would like to go with, be sure to do that. But be careful to be sure that that version is a stable version, so you don't run into any kind of glitch, right? So I'll maintain all the defaults here. And next year, there's something I want to show you here. So here is where you create your node pool. That is how many systems, how many virtual machines, how many nodes are going to be in this cluster, is going to make up this cluster. Do you want to have 2 nodes? Do you want to have 3 nodes? So you can create a cluster that is made up of 2 nodes, of 3 nodes. So this is where you do that, right? So I can say that's your agent pool. My agent pool, this first one is made up of 2 to 5 nodes. This is 2 to 100 nodes. So you can also set your node size. That's the specification of the node, if you will, from here as well. I'll just leave everything to its default here and just go right ahead and review. So it runs through everything and make sure that everything looks good. And we can create. So it's just going to take some time here to spin up this AKS cluster for us, right? What you will notice is that after you've created your AKS cluster, you will need to connect to it, right? So there are different ways of connecting to your AKS cluster, right? So one way of connecting to it would be via PowerShell, right? So I can connect to it via my Cloud Shell or PowerShell. So if you have PowerShell on your system, Azure PowerShell on your system, all well and good, you can use that. But if you don't, you can do it right from within the portal here. So I can just simply click on Cloud Shell here, and you don't have to memorize anything, by the way. So after it has finished spinning up this AKS cluster, it's going to give you the information. It's going to tell you how you can connect to the AKS cluster. Right now, I'm using the bash shell. If I would like to change it to PowerShell, so I can do so from here, right? So it is still creating it. I think I'm almost over time now. So what I'm going to do, you need to please help me look this up at a later time. Again, there are plenty of resources that you can get on Microsoft Learn online about how you can create a Kubernetes cluster, right? So let me just move on real quick, right? To just quickly touch on this. All right, so we also have Azure AI, artificial intelligence, except we've been living under the rock. So you probably also have been hearing a lot about AI lately, people doing awesome things with AI. So the way Microsoft render AI is via what is known as Azure AI, right? So Azure AI is transforming every industry now. Whether you want to talk about financial services, retail services, healthcare, education, so you have Azure AI. So AI has now become a huge cost saver for companies. So people are now, so if there's no need to have a secretary, I mean, what is the need if I can get AI to do most of the job that I need a secretary to do for me? You get the picture. So people are leveraging AI now to save cost, right? So for Azure AI have access to to the largest supercomputers in the world, right? So one of the key services offered by Azure AI is something known as Azure Cognitive Services, right? Azure Cognitive Services. So Azure Cognitive Services is a set of pre-built API that developers can use to add natural processing, speech recognition. They can do natural language processing, speech recognition, computer vision, and other AI capabilities to your application. So Azure Cognitive Services allows you to do that. So there are other services offered by Azure AI. You have Azure Machine Learning, there is the Azure Bot Service, Azure Databricks, and so on, right? I would just let me quickly leave you with these resources, then I can take a few questions because of time again, right? So I have this video up on YouTube. So let me share that real quick. So if you go to YouTube and all right, so you can check this out. So I prepared a video, very short video about OpenAI services on Azure, right? So how you can leverage on the OpenAI Studio. So you can apply for it now, and it's even quicker for Microsoft to respond to you now and give you access to the OpenAI. So it makes it seamlessly easy, to build applications now leveraging OpenAI. There's also this one here, this conversation AI with Microsoft Bot Framework. So if you like to build conversation AI with Bot Framework, I have also a video on that you can check out where I interviewed, it's been a while, Arafat Tessin, right? So it's a very is quite big, right? Arafat is quite big when it comes to AI talks. And Arafat is also one of the Learn experts, Microsoft Learn experts, right? On the Microsoft Learn platform. So you probably just want to follow him to learn a lot more about Azure AI, right? So I just want to quickly show where you can find him, right? So these are some of the Microsoft Learn experts. I'm one of them, by the way. So, but if you like to learn more about AI, this is Arafat is here. So this guy right here, so you want to follow him, look up his content, and join his learning room. It's free to join those learning rooms, by the way. So on that note, for time, I would like to or want to wrap up here and see if I can attend to a few questions.
Guys, if you have any questions, then feel free to ask. Right now is the time to ask the questions. So you can ask the questions in the chat box and Kazim will answer your questions. So someone asked, how can I pass Microsoft Azure? How can I Microsoft Azure pass? I guess the question is, uh, how can
I get
how
Microsoft Azure Pass. Okay,
yeah.
okay. Microsoft Azure Pass. You can't. Why don't you want to just register for a free account? That's a Microsoft free Azure account. So you can do that if a trial account, that is. A trial account will give you about 30 days to use those Azure services for free. And keep in mind that some of the Azure services are free, lifetime. You can use them for free. Some of them, you'll be able to use them for free for only 30 days, right? So those ones that are not free, amongst them, you have a $200 credit that you can use to run services that are not free, right? But for Azure Pass, from time to time, Microsoft gives out Azure Pass, except you are also a trainer. If you are a Microsoft certified trainer, then there is a page that you can go to download Azure Pass to use to teach your courses. Other than that, the only one I also remember now is if you're a student. So you can get a free account as a student that you can use to run your Azure services, but you will need to prove to Microsoft that you're a student to get approved. Or otherwise, you can subscribe to Visual Studio, right? It used to be called MSDN. With just a few dollars, you have your MSDN subscription, which will come with, I think, is like $100 or a $200, either $100 or $200 Azure credit every month. The subscription is just once a year. Once you have your subscription active, it comes bundled with a number of tools that you can use. You can get most of the softwares for free. You don't have to be using a pirated copy of Microsoft Office. You just download it from your MSDN subscription. If you need Office 365, I think there is some free version of Office 365 for those with MSDN subscription. Azure, so you can run it, they give you the credits, they renew it on a monthly basis. So that's as far as I know. And sometimes when we run events too, Microsoft might give us some free Azure passes to, pass on to people. I don't know, except Suraj, has some Azure passes to give away. But that's how you can get free, Azure passes, or how you can use Azure services for free. Yeah. Is there any other question?
Yes, Kanzim. We have few more questions in the chat box. So someone someone is asking like uh, how can system admin function in DevOps and what skill is expected to function there?
Okay, so if you're a system admin, I've said you necessarily don't be a developer. You don't need to be a developer to be a DevOps engineer. Though if you have development skills, that's awesome, but you don't need to be a developer. The key role of a DevOps engineer is to sit in between the developers and the system administrators or the sysop people. That is simply your role. So one certification that you can look at is Azure DevOps. So just try to learn about Azure DevOps, and most of these things you can even learn them for free. There are a number of tools or a number of resources that you can get on LinkedIn Learning, for example. Yes, LinkedIn Learning isn't free, but if you don't have the money, you can get it for free for 1 month. So that period of 1 month, you can focus on acquiring a skills that matters most to you. So there are a number of DevOps courses on, the LinkedIn Learning Library that you can take advantage of. So if you want to be a DevOps engineer, yes, it helps to have some foundational skills about the cloud, maybe an Azure fundamental skills. By the way, I have one course up on LinkedIn Learning. I'm a LinkedIn instructor too, so you can look up that course. Have a 1 month free subscription. You look up a basic Azure course and look at a DevOps course. That will be sufficient. And if you want to take it a notch, a step further, then you want to also learn one programming language. And if you want to do that, I would recommend that you just go with Python. Python is the most easiest programming language that you can chew on, that you can take on. In about a month or two, depending on your availability, you should be able to get comfortable writing codes with Python. So that's about what you need to be a DevOps engineer. So any other skills will just be additional, right?
Okay, I hope it clarifies your doubt. Now, someone is asking when we are doing automatic deployment of load balancer and other compute resources, do we do it in K8s?
Okay. No, can you come again with the question? When we're doing load balancer for... Do you want to help me repeat the question again, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, it's little up in the chat
When...
box. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah,
Okay, this
yeah,
is
this
it, right?
one. This is the question. Yeah.
Do it in AKS. Yes, when you create your cluster, right? Your cluster would come with a load balancer, right? Remember, when you create a cluster, you are likely going to have more than one. You're going to be having more than one nodes, right? You're going to be having 3, 4 nodes. So how would AKS know to switch between multiple nodes? So it's via a load balancer. So yes, in AKS, a load balancer get created for you when you spin up your cluster. But you're also in charge, of tearing things apart if you like to do that. So the only thing is the control plane itself that Microsoft helps you with when it comes to AKS, right? But the individual components, you have the free will, so to speak, to reconfigure them to suit your need. So if I get it right, that's your question now. I mean, when you spin up your cluster, it comes pre-configured with a load balancer, and you have the option to adjust the settings of your load balancer. What kind of AI applications can we use Azure to build? AI applications can we build on Azure platform? Perhaps you can build any AI, applications. AI is broad. It's a broad term, right? So you perhaps might need to just get a little bit, maybe a little more specific. But anything at all that you want to do, you can get it done with Azure AI. I just told you earlier on that one tool that I want you to check out is your Azure OpenAI. So just try to look it up, Azure OpenAI. When it comes to AI, it makes it seamlessly super easy for you to now build ML, build AI applications leveraging those tools. So you don't even have to write any single line of code, with the OpenAI Studio. So it's a tool that you want to check out. Any kind of, apps at all, so you can build them with the OpenAI tool. I got my Azure Fundamental certificate and I want to know which certificate I should prepare for next. It will depend on your interest. If I can find, there is an article that I have that I think will help you do justice to this question. So if I can. All right, so I think I'm going to send that to Sur. Let me see. I should be able to quickly get it. Just 1 minute. 1 minute. So it will help you narrow down your path. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Let me see if I have one session open.
So those who are asking, yes, you will be getting a certificate of participation for attending today's event, and I will be sharing a link soon for attendance form that you have to fill in order to get the certificate of participation.
Okay. So you might also just want to follow me on LinkedIn too as well. But I want to just show you an article that I have up on LinkedIn on Microsoft Learn. So the link, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I should be able to get it from here. No. Yes, so this is it right here. Okay, so 8 tips to maximize your Azure experience, right? So I think somewhere down I put some link to where you can, if you would like to learn about Microsoft Azure. So please, you might want to just check this out. To answer that question in full details, there is a learning path. If you've just completed your Azure fundamentals, maybe the next logical step for you might be to take on the AZ 104, the Azure Administrator. But that will be applicable if you want to follow the administration route, right? Otherwise, if you want to become a developer, then you need to follow the developer route. You might want to be a database administrator. You might want to be a data person. So there are different routes that you can follow. But if it is AZ 900, the next logical step for you will be AZ 104. So regardless of even whether you want to become a developer or still a systems engineer, a cloud engineer, you will always find the AZ 104 very helpful. So that's my response to that question, if you will.
Okay. Someone is asking, can Azure build a standalone application?
Um, if you want to build a standalone application, you should leverage you have Visual Studio, right? And you can code different languages in Visual Studio. So why not use those platforms instead? Why don't you want to build it with Go? Why not build it with Python? Right? So if you're talking about services in the Azure cloud, so you're looking to write application for the cloud, right? So work more with Go, work more with Python, work more with C Sharp, VB.NET. You get the picture to build those standalone applications. Yeah. Is it a developer account? The student account, there's a developer account. So there are different ones, but you just need to prove that you're a student to be able to get the free account. If you're a student, can you use Azure account to configure Microsoft Sentinel? Microsoft Sentinel, I'm not completely sure if you can, because some of the services now has changed. The Microsoft is redesigning a lot of their the pricing model. Most of those things now have pricing, so I'm not sure. So I don't give you a wrong response to that. But most of them you can always test them out. So even with I told you that the Microsoft Azure has changed, right? That's Microsoft Azure AD has changed to Entra ID. So what you find with Entra ID now is that some of the services that we used to have for free are now paid services. You need to get license for them. So just check it out, I would say. What are the cloud services role provided? I'm sorry, I don't understand this question. Okay, certificate. All right, so I think that pretty much does it. Suraj, yourself, there's something else, if there's anyone that would like to speak or something like that.
Yeah, I think we are. Uh, you have taken all the questions, and I already answered it. That yes, you will be getting a certificate for attending today's session, and I'm sharing the link in the chat box. This is the attendance form, and please fill it. Before I share it, I would like to thank you, our speaker. Thanks. I would like to thank our speaker, Kazim. Thank you so much, Kazim, for taking your time and uh, in guiding us with the Azure developer tools. We look forward to have you in many more such sessions.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone liked it. Uh, Everyone liked your explanation, and even they in the chat box, I read some comments. They were saying thank you for this amazing session. So on behalf of everyone, on behalf of our audience, as well as on behalf of Steva, I would like to thank you for taking your time in delivering such a wonderful talk.
You're very much welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Kazim. Bye.
Bye.
Do follow Kazim and do subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. And do follow him on LinkedIn. Yeah, now I'm sharing the link with you guys for the attendance form. Please fill it if you want the certificate for today's session. So this is the attendance form. Let me just pin it as well. It's in the chat box. Yeah. And if you haven't joined our community, then I would highly recommend you to join our community and uh, do join our community. Do join us on Discord. If you are not on Discord, then we have a community on WhatsApp as well. So do join it. This is the QR code to join our community.